Hi, this is Dr. Michelle, welcoming you to the question and answer session for day 3 of the 5-day makeover challenge. Today we're going to be talking about blocks and barriers. I hope you've already taken a look at the training this morning and that you understand that the blocks and barriers are an inside job. That we develop these patterns and these setups to protect ourselves. So let me explain that a little bit more carefully. We come into this world as helpless infants, and we depend upon our parents to give us what we need because we really can't do anything ourselves. The problem is that our parents don't understand that besides food, clothing, shelter. Hi, Mira, thanks for joining. So besides food, clothing, and shelter, we also need attention, love, nurturance, touch, caring, acknowledgement, appreciation. And when we don't get those things, we actually learn to actively seek them out. I have talked in a number of my other talks about the ways in which we do this. The people pleaser who goes and does everything to make people like them so that they will get the attention. Or like our President Trump, he uses outrageous statements and being a bad boy and making us angry to get attention. And boy, does it work. And then there are the controllers who try to control their circumstance and force people through dependency to give them what they need. When you want to change, when you want to step more fully into your power and have more impact in the world, you have to start changing those patterns. And the inner child doesn't want to have anything to do with that, does everything to block that, to stop you from trying to change. And a lot of those blocks have been set up a long time ago. Hey, Lydia, thanks for coming back. So a lot of those blocks and barriers were set up a long time ago. And I've mentioned the external ones where we see that the world out there is at fault. That's the reason why we can't move forward. Our spouses preventing us, or our children are preventing us, or the demands of my parents are preventing me. I have to take care of them. Or my boss is making me work too hard, and we see it as external from ourselves. And that takes us off the hook because it isn't our fault. Right now we could say, oh, coronavirus, I can't do anything because it's out of my control. Actually, the coronavirus right now has put us into a new place in terms of our blocks and barriers. It's created a whole new arena of responses because the old patterns, our traditional, usual go-to patterns of distracting or staying super busy or taking care of other people or indulging in some way, it's been removed. We're stuck at home. Suddenly, if you are all by yourself, you may start to think, well, maybe living by myself is not as great as I thought it was. And if you were living at home with somebody, maybe you're going to say, who the hell is this person? And you might find that you aren't getting along very well because a lot of the ways in which you've held that relationship together have depended upon a certain amount of distance and separation. So at the same time, we're dealing with too much togetherness and not enough. And the reality is that human beings need social contact. One of the most serious punishments that is given to prisoners is isolation. It literally causes psychological disturbances, hallucinations, personality disorder. Hopefully, not permanently. It depends on how long they do that. Unless you happen to be a Buddhist monk and used to being able to handle that. And in a sense, I'm inviting you to learn a new way of handling what we're dealing with this virus. And then the virus is setting us up to have to face our worst awful fears. One is death, or getting sick and dying, and the other is isolation. Now there's some iterations of this. You may be afraid of getting sick because you're afraid that you might hurt somebody else, like your children or your parents. And so you don't want to get sick because you don't want to hurt them. And also, you don't want to be isolated from them. So what's the response now? We don't have our usual distractions. Well, we come up with new distractions, right? The typical response, that is the biological response that is wired into us for handling fear, threats to our survival, are fight, flee, and freeze. So I want you to think about your own situation right now and how any of those might be coming up. Now, I've seen the fight response. It's coming up in spades. The fight response, all the people running to the grocery store and grabbing as much food as they can. Hi, thank you for joining, Bruce. Great to have you here. So that is a fight response. It's like, get it before anybody else can get it so that you can take care of your own. But another form of this fight is what you're seeing on the internet. Particularly, I've been seeing this in Facebook. Conspiracy theories to blame somebody for the coronavirus. Let's blame the Chinese. They've created this virus to make us sick. Okay, let's let go of that one. And then there's, it's all the president's fault. And I have seen diatribes on how terrible he is. I got to tell you, what you're doing is you're feeding right into his agenda by doing that. Please stop posting his insanity or his craziness. If you want to stop him, stop giving him attention, because his pattern is the rebel's pattern, and he is trying to be as obnoxious as he can to get a response, and it's working, and you're giving it to him. So those are all around the fight reaction. You might actually go and get into an argument with your partner, or get into an argument or create a crisis with your children. That's another way to distract yourself. Because if you're in that drama, and by the way, we do get addicted to drama. There are chemicals that are released in our body. And if we're used to drama, and that's a way to distract ourselves from what's really going on, we might be inclined to stimulate that. Now, why are we trying to distract ourselves? Why are we trying to run away? Well, the underlying reason is that we're afraid of death and we're afraid of isolation. But we're also afraid of moving forward. We're afraid of being who we really are. Why? Because we're afraid of death and isolation. If we're who we really are, if we respond to that urge that's inside of all of us, that spiritual urge to fulfill our purpose, if we respond to it, then we set ourselves up for rejection or even death. Although the death was really when we were children, we don't really have that, but the pattern is there and the fear is there. And so the process of changing that is facing the fear. You have to face the fear and realize that you're not going to die. And I've worked with clients on this. They are terrified of going into their feelings. They believe that they are never going to get out, that they're going to fall into the dragon pit and never get up again. That's not true, but they have to learn that that's not true. So I've talked about the fear, and then there's the distraction, and that is when you have an argument and you get into some kind of crisis. If you can create a crisis, that's great, because now you are totally distracted from how you feel, how afraid you feel. The third, so that's distraction or flee. Also, you flee by getting involved in all this stuff going on the internet. You read the latest statistics, you read the latest information, and you just you spend all your, or maybe you actually distract yourself by watching documentaries or all the freebie things that are out there. I'm in a group called Brain Exchange, and they post information about what you can do to distract yourself. Well, they also give you some really great ideas about how to distract or work with your children, but they also give tons of ideas about how you can fill up your time, because we are afraid of that time. Why? Because if you really sit down and really let yourself and your mind go, all those beliefs, all those thoughts, all those things that make you feel bad will come crowding in. That's why people work with me, to teach you emotional hygiene, to teach you how to manage the thoughts, to transform the thoughts, to change the patterns so that you don't beat yourself up anymore. So the third one, and this was actually what I wanted to start with, because I had this amazingly scary dream this morning. The third one is freeze. This morning I had a dream in which people were being held hostage, and the people who are holding them hostage were taking them one at a time and killing them and eating them. I looked at myself and I said, wow. I woke up, I said, wow, what's going on inside of me that I had that dream? Well, here's another aspect of this whole paradigm. We are super sensitive to the herd. We are super sensitive and aware on levels we don't even realize of the whole global community. And so even if I don't feel that fear of being devoured by my fear, because that's what we're talking about, being devoured by your fear, a lot of the rest of the world is in that state. And I just picked it up in my dream. And I'm sharing it with you because I want you to look and see if you are being devoured by your fear. And what can you do to shift that? What can you do to get out of your fear without distracting, without getting into arguments, without getting angry and blaming? What can you do? First, appreciate that you are in this body, and this body is connected with all the other human beings on this planet, and that you are feeling their energy. You may not know it, but it really is going on right now. So pay attention. Be curious. So that's my main tip for today, is be curious. Say, oh, look at that. What's going on? And of course, my other tip is meditation, which means really facing the dragon, going inside, allowing your thoughts to just show up. I go more into this in my program. This is how I deal, this is what I deal with. This whole coronavirus reminds me a lot of dealing with my grief and loss clients who I worked with for over 5 years. They were coming in to work with me because they didn't know how to move forward. They were overwhelmed by fear, and life was no longer normal. So that's what we're dealing with right now. Life is no longer normal. What life used to be is no longer possible. Now, I believe that most of you are hoping that things are going to go back to normal. I don't believe they are ever going to completely go back to normal. From what I've been reading about this virus, it is probably going to keep on coming around. Now, maybe we'll develop immunities. But the other thing is that unless we as a culture, as a society, as a global community stop our behavior, we stop taking away all the wilderness, we're going to keep on coming into contact with those various coronaviruses. And one of them is eventually going to annihilate us. I mean, look at how this tiny, invisible entity has brought us to a standstill. And this is just the first. What I've been seeing Mother Nature is doing is she constantly is trying to wake us up, wake you up, wake you up. First, the hurricanes and the floods and the fires, and we just normalize. We throw money at it, and we try to get back to normal. I'm inviting you to take this as an opportunity to go deeper and find out what your true purpose is. Now, why is purpose so important? When you have a purpose, when you have a mission, when you're really clear about why it is you're here, not only does this give you a focus and meaning for your life, not only does this stop the fear, because now you're doing it. Of course, other fears are going to come up, which is all the childhood fears. But now you have a perfect vehicle for clearing them. When your purpose, when your vision is powerful enough, it will help you, will enable you to break through all the things that are holding you back. Personally, I find that it helps to have a coach, somebody who can see you, somebody who can support you, somebody who can lend you a hand when you are in the dragon pit. Because if you're just listening to yourself, if you're just listening to that inner child who is scared out of his or her mind, you can be held there for a long, long time. So let's see, I'm going to go ahead and summarize what I was talking about today. Number one, we are in a new time period when our old systems of distraction, our old patterns of blocks and barriers are not functioning as well. This triggers the flight, freeze, flee response. Because the coronavirus, the virus forces us to look at two primary fears. One fear is death, and the other fear is abandonment. And you say, why are we afraid of abandonment? Because human beings are social beings. We actually depend upon each other to survive. We are wired to bond. Chemicals and mental and electrical and magnetic structures in your body ensure that you reach out for other people. A lot of people who are afraid, and there are people who have been abused and are really afraid, struggle with the approach avoidance, of wanting that contact and being terrified of it. And even the people pleasers who work like crazy to get attention are really afraid of receiving real love. When somebody tells you how wonderful you are, do you receive it or do you push it away? If you are a controller, you're afraid of letting go of that control. And so these are the fundamental patterns. Or there's the SelfSoother, and maybe some of you have been involved in a certain amount of self-soothing, watching TV, watching documentaries, drinking. Have you started to drink more because you don't want to feel? I'm all about feeling. You want to be able to feel what's going on. Because when you shut down your feelings, you shut down all your feelings. You become numb. You become shut down from the neck to the feet. And the reality is that your body is providing you with crucial information about the state of your body all the time. So you want to be able to open up to that. Now, some of the patterns that we're using right now, because our old standby barriers and blocks are not working as well. Now, some of you may still be able to, if you're living with your family and your husband's there and your children are there and you're dealing with your parents, you can still rely on those patterns of everybody else comes first. Except that if you don't take care of yourself, you might get sick and then you're going to hurt everybody else. So there's a really good reason for doing something to take care of yourself. It's a step in the right direction. But if you don't have those nice go-to blocks and barriers, you may have to come up with some new ones. And some of the new ones I've noticed, the fight approach, which is to get on the internet and fall into those conspiracy theories or spend all your time fuming about your president or fuming about whoever else you think is at fault out there, or you flee into distraction, you get into an argument, that's using the anger approach, or you create a crisis so that you can step in and be the hero, or you can take care of people and be of service. Or maybe you start to reach out to everybody out there. How are you doing? Can I help you? Can I go shopping? And by the way, yes, it's good to be generous. And you will feel good about doing that. But at the same time, I'm inviting you to go deeper, to check inside. What are you running away from? And finally, there's the freeze pattern. And that is allowing the depression, the global freeze, overwhelm to infuse you. And you are feeling it. So be aware and do what you need to take care of your body, to soothe your body, to make it feel safe. Because if you're receiving all that information out there and you aren't feeling safe, and you look around and it's like, well, actually, I am safe, then you need to do something a little bit more than that. We are in a new period. Will we ever go back to the way it was before? We are changed forever. This whole process may ignite us. It might stimulate us to take on actions that we never considered before. This week is your opportunity to explore what that might be. How can you step more fully into your purpose? How can you manage your fears so that you can be of service, so that you can fulfill your mission and purpose? Tomorrow, the training is about your vision. And I'm working with another demo, with another participant, to talk about what your vision is. And then I'm going to answer questions and answers, or make up questions to answer. Please post your questions if you have questions. Take a risk. Say what it is that's confusing you. Ask for more details if you need it. And I will answer them in the questions section. Finally, remember that on Friday, I am going to be doing a webinar this time. So you're not going to be coming to Facebook Live. You're going to be coming to Zoom. And I will post the link in the group so that you know where to go. And you can come by computer or you can come by telephone. And now 12:30 noon, and this is Pacific Standard Time, 12:30 might be a very busy time, in which case coming by phone might be better. It might work better, and I assure you that I will provide you with all the information you need and will post the webinar in the group later on. That's what I have for today. Be courageous, be curious, be brilliant. Bye for now.